recording on the computer. And we're going to give Facebook just a minute or two to notify everybody that we're here. But welcome to the launch event for Tessa. Hello, Tessa.
Hello, how are you?
Excellent. How are you? And hello,
Very well.
Kerri.
The book as much as I possibly can, because look at that beautiful cover. I mean, look at it's so gorgeous.
It's a great cover. It's a really
It is. It took us a long time to get there.
It was worth it.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it's really just, I mean, it's like so beautiful.
Yeah.
And the window, you know.
Yeah. And the light. I love the light in it.
They did a really good job with the lighting,
Yeah.
very much. Yep.
Yeah.
Really did.
Yeah.
There
And
it is.
the what are we with the curly cues that on the my graphic
Yeah, the
design
graphic, the little
is not
graphic
very
thing.
good.
Yeah.
Yes, we've got little bits of fanciness.
Yes.
Well, kind of what a taffeta does, right?
Yes.
Kind of what's on the
Yes,
taffeta.
a bit of movement.
Yes.
This movement. Yes.
Yeah. And Kerri, we were talking in the green room that we actually got to do a live in-person event with you back in February.
I know that was really amazing. And you know, it's I'm really glad that my parents and my brother live in Southern California, so I have a reason to come to your store.
Right. And we had lots of people.
Great. Yes. And it was really fun to chat with Kate Quinn. I mean, I love these like multi-author kinds of events. I think that they are and the most entertaining for everybody involved.
Yeah.
They are really fun. But for like something like this, it'd be hard for us to get together in person with Tessa and with you. So that's why I love doing the virtual, and I love lifting up as many on the virtual platform as we can. So we had Tessa last year for the release of In Royal Service of the Queen, and now we have this one. So welcome back.
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to, just for people who are tuning in, I'm going to, in the chat of Facebook, I'm going to put in how to order a dress of violet taffeta. So you can order that from Warwick's, or, you know, if you have a local independent that you love, we're okay if you order it from there. But if it's not an independent, order it from us. And also in that chat, Kerri and Tessa are going to talk for about 30-ish minutes, something like that. If you have any questions for either one, please put those into the comment section of Facebook. We love the audience questions, and I'll bring those into the conversation in about a half hour or so. But I think we've given Facebook enough time to notify everybody that we're here and that we're live. So let me introduce these lovely women, and I will get off the screen and let the show begin. So Tessa Arlen is the author of Women of World War II Mysteries and the novel, and like I talked about earlier, In Royal Service to the Queen. She was born in Singapore, the daughter of a British diplomat. She's lived in lots of great places: Egypt, Germany, the Persian Gulf, China, India. She now lives with her husband in historic Santa Fe, where she gardens in the summer and writes in the winter. It sounds like an idyllic life, I have to say. Joining her is Carrie Merrick. Carrie is the national best-selling author of The Paris Bookseller, The Girl in White Gloves, The Kennedy Debutante, and under the name Carrie Majors, This Is Not a Writing Manual, Notes for the Young Writer in the Real World. She holds an MFA from Columbia University and lives with her daughter and dog in a leafy suburb west of Boston, Massachusetts. Another idyllic setting, it sounds like. So you two ladies have a great conversation, and we'll see you in a little bit.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Oh, and thank you, Warwick's, for having us. And Tessa, I'm so excited to be here with you. I'm going to hold up the book again, because look how gorgeous it is. A dress of violet taffeta. And it's as gorgeous inside as it is outside, I have to tell everybody. So I've had the great pleasure of reading it for the last few weeks. And so I just love it. So should we get to I have some questions ready.
I know. I'm dying to hear them.
Okay. So Lucy, Lady Duff Gordon is, the star of your novel. And I had never heard of her, but she was quite the star of the fashion world in this Belle Epoque period. So I'm wondering, first of all, how you came to her story.
Well, I wrote a 4-book Edwardian mystery series before I did World War II Ladies and the Queen, and I was researching for that, and I love that period. I love that very short period of time, 1900 to the beginning of the World War I, because it was a time of such incredible change. It was a time of moving from the Victorian era to a liberal government in Britain. It was a time of immense wealth and privilege for some and not for others. And whilst I was researching, I kept coming across this woman. She was mentioned in all sorts of ways, and not often in a very approving way. Because she divorced her husband. She was considered to be a social climber because she married up, which was unforgivable unless you had stacks of money to offer the landed and the privileged. And she was in trade, which was another no, because she came from the sort of upper middle classes. So all of that, there was a disapproval for her. Also, she was considered to be ruthless and ambitious. So I was sort of registered her. And then one day I was in London, and it was somewhere like February, really cold, really grim. And I walked Victoria and Albert.
Oh, I love that museum.
I know. So I hopped in just to, indulge. And there was an exhibition of Lucille, her label. And it was, I get goosebumps just remembering it. It was absolutely superb, because her clothes weren't just those elegant clothes you see on Downton Abbey. There was a playfulness and a wit to them. And she had an incredible eye for color. And I thought, this woman must have been amazing. She must have been incredible. And I started to find out more about her. And the more I found out about her, the more I wanted to write about her. So,
I mean, I want to talk actually a little bit about the fabrics and things, because the way you describe them in the novel is just out of this world. I'm just like, I could feel them in my hands. I could feel them on my skin. I mean, it was just like you have this amazing tactile vocabulary. I'm not sure how you did that, but it's really magical when you're reading it. But so I guess I don't need you to divulge your magic secrets, but you wonder about the research that went into your knowing, for instance, that I had to write this down, that Palmer cotton dresses were what were worn in the morning. So how do you even, I do my own historical research, obviously, novels, but I wouldn't even know where to go to find that out. So can you tell us a little bit about your research for the sartorial aspects of the novel?
Yeah, I bought a book from the V&A about Lucille.
On that day that you were there?
No, it came out later. Her grandson, the Earl of Harfield, actually gave to the V&A all her drawings. She used to keep journals. And in the journal, she would draw and paint the dress. Then all down the side, she would have scraps of the many fabrics that went into it. And they have these drawings in this book, and they also describe quite beautifully the process of making those dresses, which was incredible. And then I think I'm very visual before I'm anything else. So to me, my house is terribly important to me. The way it is, my garden. I'm a real shut-in, and I live this little sort of small life, and so I think basically just seeing her clothes and clothes don't do well, over the years. They look droopy.
Right.
The V&A had a collection that was out of this world and have been superbly looked after. I would love to have seen them fresh.
Oh yeah.
Salon, because she used to do these amazingly intricate, tiny little intricacies, and then when you get up close, you're like, oh my God, look at this. They're really works of art. I can't imagine wearing one. You'd just be horrified.
Well, have you always been kind of into fashion, or was this sort of, was your interest in her what led you to develop this interest?
Well, I mean, I like clothes, but I'm very plain. You know, I don't go shopping as a sort of pastime.
Mhm.
I don't change my clothes.
I have to admit, I do like shopping as a pastime.
You do? Oh, good for you.
Times.
Do you? I can't do that thing where you go out with a girlfriend and you go shopping. It's to me, it's like run into Eileen Fisher, run out again.
Well, you know, I've always enjoyed shopping with my mom, and now I actually really enjoy shopping with my daughter. So I don't know, maybe it's I've done some.
I used to love shopping with my girls. They won't let me do it with them anymore.
Oh.
But when they were back to school was quite a thing.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I do think clothes matter. I think they matter, but they're not predominant in my life.
Yeah.
But those women, the ones that Lucy designed for, it mattered. It was vital that they never let the side down. They represented their husband's wealth and title. And of course, they had wardrobes that were, every season it was a new wardrobe.
Yep.
I think truly that the whole business of Lucy's clothing and how it was made and the incredible fabrics, the incredible quality of fabrics, I think that actually was something that the more I looked into it, I became almost obsessed with it.
Oh, sorry, I put you on mute for a second because my dog is misbehaving in the background.
I've got mine locked away upstairs, and I can.
He would be misbehaving more if he was locked away. Sadly, I've got a needy doodle. In fact, if my daughter can hear me, could you shut the door?
I can't hear it.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good.
I can't hear.
I want to stay on this on the dresses and stuff for a second, because something that also I've noticed on your Instagram page, and everyone, if you're not following Tessa, you should be following her on Instagram, because you've posted some really wonderful kind of contextual photographs and images of this time period that really helped me understand kind of this moment and and the amazing thing that she was doing. So I'm wondering, like, where did you go to find those images? Were they part of the book? And where do you go to find more images and things like that inspire you? And I'm going to apologize because I'm going to go off camera for just 1 second.
I know, I understand. I'll talk whilst you go. So basically, there are so few of Lucille Label's clothes that have survived. It's inevitable. So I just chose the very best I could find online. And some of them I had to write away for permission to use. So I used those, but also I wanted to inform a little more also about the business of making clothes, the business of the rag trade then. And the women who worked on those clothes were highly skilled and would do a piece of a dress. They would do the embroidery, they would emboss the embroidery, they would inset lace, they would make the sleeves and puff them up with feather bone. Just a simple lace and lawn blouse to wear with a skirt during the day was a work of art. But the most, there are so many amazing blogs on Edwardian fashion that I would visit and ask questions like, how was this made and how was this done? Because there are people out there who really know what they're talking about when it comes to Edwardian fashion.
Yeah,
I was a researcher. Historical fiction is based on a massive amount of research, and then we take the characters, right?
Yep.
And make them ours, which is why it's called fiction.
Yep. Yes, I know. And you know, so did you find yourself rewatching episodes of early Downton Abbey because because that's the same time period, right?
It is, but I have to tell you something. I watched one Downton and then I was like, thank you.
Oh.
I know. I just found it so, never mind. We'll not go.
No, we will not go there.
We will not go there. It was beautifully, beautifully researched.
Yes.
I just found it rather odd that this Earl would spend all his time hanging out with his valet and his butler. But they wouldn't. I mean, they would have been nice to him. He wouldn't have been a snob. He would have been a gentleman to him. But I was just like, what's he doing hanging out with what's his face again?
I love
Never mind about that.
I love it. The inside, I love it. That's so great. But I'm here to say that if you're listening right now and you did like Downton Abbey, you will absolutely love Tessa's book because I think it has some of the same appeal.
Yes,
you know, exactly. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit because another truly surprising thing is, so not only was Lucy kind of this amazing star in the world of fashion, she was a passenger aboard the Titanic. And there was, so there was a British Board of Trade inquiry after. Huge. Can you, without like any major spoilers, right? Like, can you talk a little bit about that and about why that was so important to her career and, you know, all in her life and everything?
Absolutely. You know, the British Wreck Commission required the Board of Trade, which had given Titanic the license to be a passenger liner. So the Board of Trade were really on the hook. And waiting in the wings was every conceivable maritime union you can imagine, waiting to carve up White Star and get recompense for the horrendous loss. When that ship went down, all the crew were furloughed. There was no ship, they weren't paid. None of them were paid. From that moment onwards, the survivors were penniless in New York. They had to rely on a charity that actually Molly Brown put together. So the British Board, and there was an American inquiry into the Titanic, but it was nothing like the unbelievable show that went on in London. With all these people hoping for the White Star to go down, and the Board of Trade didn't want White Star to go down because if it did, then the French and the German shipping lines would have cleaned up. So it was heavily attended with testimonies and required witnesses because it was an Irish design ship, an Irish made ship owned by a British company registered as a British ship. But the major shareholder in White Star was J.P. Morgan, an American. So the French went running around saying, well, what a combination. We've got these arrogant English people with this unsinkable, sinkable ship. And we've got these arrogant Americans with their greed and their must-haves and their need for excessive luxury. And so it turned into a sort of rather ugly series of accusations. And the reason why Lucy's husband was actually accused of cowardice and bribery was a distraction for the press, because they didn't want the press saying things like there weren't enough lifeboats, there was no lifeboat drill, they were going too fast into a ice field, all the dreadful things that had happened to make so that ship had gone down. So they had all these little sideshow distractions, which was cruel. And if you read the book, you'll find out what happened.
Right. And meanwhile, people are just trying to like survive in New York, or you know. Yes, there was.
Yes, there was the only thing I can remember, and I jotted it down, is that in first class, 62% of the passengers survived. In second class, 43% survived. And in steerage, which was probably mostly people emigrating to America for a better life, only 25%. And believe you me, there were more people in steerage than there ever were in first class. That's how they made their money.
Yeah.
Anyway, so poor old Cosmo Duff Gordon was exonerated. He was found to be not guilty of cowardice and bribery, but it wrecked his life completely.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an amazing, like for her to have had like these amazing experiences and then she's, well, I don't know whether this is a spoiler or not.
No, go ahead, because everybody really knows the story.
She has a near miss that she almost gets on the Lusitania, right?
Yes.
No, like, I mean, how many?
I found out that the other day. I was like, what? I read this amazing book about the Lusitania, and I'm terrible with names. Is his name Eric Larson? He wrote about the Lusitania.
Yes.
He writes nonfiction.
The Devil in the White, is that the one about the Lusitania? I'm not sure which one is about the Lusitania.
He wrote one about the Lusitania. He also wrote another book that I finished reading called The Garden of the Beasts, which was about the rise of Nazi Germany and the American ambassador there at the time. But anyway, I'm digressing. Lucy got a sore throat and decided she wasn't going to sail.
Thank goodness, because how could she possibly dodge the same bullet twice, right? I mean,
I don't know, but the captain of the Lusitania apparently had been shipwrecked twice before the Lusitania.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Here's what I think about that time.
Yeah.
There's so much modernization and so much innovation and so much like breaking through with new technologies.
Yes, yes.
People would fall downstairs that hadn't been properly built and electrocute themselves with something that was new and innovative. There was very little regard for testing and safety. It was all like, and I've got a feeling that Titanic was kind of one of those things. I don't want any more than that because there's so many experts out there, and I'm already going to be lambasted on Goodreads by people who know about this than me. But basically, that is, after I finished reading all about it, that's what I came away with. It was all stress and showing off.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it goes with the themes of fashion and like the ways in which people had to present themselves and like how important image was during this time. And, I learned so much about like sort of that time period and like the way, again, like you said at the beginning, the ways in which a woman had to dress in a sort of particular way at different times of day. I mean, these are things, I guess, one intuits them by watching shows like Downton Abbey and reading, novels set during this time period, but you really explain the ins and outs of all of those things. And also, and also, as you were talking about before, the incredible amount of time it took to make just one of these dresses that a woman would wear for a few hours. I mean, it's a remarkable.
Yeah. It's kind of mind-boggling when you think of the incredible work that went into a gown that we worn for one grand occasion. Because the Prince of Wales was funny guy, that with his Marlborough set and his mistresses, they were expected to keep him entertained, and he was a stickler for dress. I mean, he was insane about it. There's a scene when Lucy goes to Warwick Castle and she's rushed around all day long. She's exhausted and she's dressing a play for an amateur dramatic production. And she goes down, she insists on going down to tea. Her sister says, no, we need to. And she's like, no, I'm starving. And she's going to wear her hat because her hair's a mess. And her sister says, no, you can't. No, he doesn't like it when women wear hats to tea. And it was just, I slipped it in there because it was obsessive stuff and very oppressive. Still, we come out of the Victorian era, but we were still required women.
Oh, no. Yes, 100%. Well, okay, so you mentioned the sister. So one of my questions, and then we might go to audience questions if they're coming in. I have a couple more questions as well, but let's talk a little bit about her sister, Eleanor Glenn. She also had kind of a fabulous and amazing life of her own. You want to tell us a little bit more about her? Did you discover her through your research on Lucy?
No, I knew about Eleanor long before Lucy, because she was, out of the two of them, very flamboyant. And
Okay.
Lucy was pretty, but Eleanor was dynamic. You know, she had this flaming red hair and she was a grande dame. She married very well, but she married a real eccentric. And of course, the thing is, he got through his money too. You know, he was trying to be part of the Marlborough set, and he kept redoing his house and being very excessive in the way he lived. So she had always been good at telling stories. So she became a novelist, but she wrote racy stuff. And she wrote this novel called 3 Weeks about an older Bavarian or Hungarian princess who seduces a young man of 20. And it was banned. I mean, you know, they went nuts. Everybody went crazy. You know, if boys at Eton were flogged if they were found with a copy. And
oh my gosh.
Old men demanding that the bookstore was closed. You know, it was an amazing, and I read it, as much of it as I could stand, because it's really silly, but it was all heavy breathing and fires sparking into life. And she became a bit of a joke amongst the intellectual set, of which there were many at that time.
Yes.
Of saying that there was a little doggerel they made up about her, and it was, would you like to sin on a tiger skin with Eleanor Glenn, or would you rather err with her on some other fur? because it's not right. So anyway,
the British aristocracy could be so beautifully mean.
Yes. And they didn't do it on the QT either. They just came out with it.
No, right. Yes. Well, did she only write the one novel?
No, she wrote, actually, the first novel she wrote was about her mother's falling in love. And then she wrote several. They were all pretty much of the same vein, but the one that caused the most havoc, and she was delighted with the havoc, was 3 Weeks. And then she went to, and it went down a storm in America. So she goes off to America and does a lecture tour and ends up in Hollywood. And she wrote for the movies, and she became a movie director in the silver screen days.
I'm sure their mother, what did Mama say? I mean, she's so obsessed with propriety and, you know, all that.
I have to say that the mum is not my mother, is my character. I have no idea what the mom was like. I'm sure she was a nice old girl, but I just wanted to make her the morality of the time, right? I wanted her to be disciplined. I wanted her to be the sort of the voice of despair in the background of her daughter's carrying ons.
Yes. Well, she also serves the wonderful purpose of instructing the reader on what's proper for the time, right? And
yeah, she's the sort of vox populi. Yes.
I love that. So she's so actually you weren't able to find out very much about the real mother, right? So you were able to kind of bring your fictional imagination to that.
Well, yeah, you know how that is because you write.
Yes. Oh yeah.
So truly, Lucy was considered to be ruthless and ambitious. I made her a woman who was struggling to survive and to look after her child, because the protagonist can't be, you have rooting for her. So basically, she was struggling. She was a struggling mother.
Yeah. Well, and one woman's ruthless and ambitious, one person's ruthless and ambitious is another person struggling to survive. Like that, those things can coexist.
Yes. And we're not all one note, you know?
No, exactly. And I think that, your novel absolutely delivers those complexities. Like really, I mean, I don't think anyone who reads this book will be surprised that that's the way she was perceived at the time. But you bring us into her world in such a way that we understand what her internal and external struggles really were and why she had to like do the things that she did. So I do see that Julie has some audience.
She has, yes.
For you. So let's head up, Julie.
So we had to pull ourselves back there.
Pull ourselves back, but there's so much more that we could talk about. I mean, the research that you did and all of the background before we get to Susan's question, was there something that you had to leave out that you wanted to put in?
Oh yeah. I like this question.
Well, I stopped the story on a good note when actually it didn't end on one, their lives. I put that in the author's note because I think that's where we confess.
Yes. Okay.
So people
can look in.
Actually, I made all that up.
I like that. And I think Thunderstruck was the Eric Larson book that you guys were thinking of. Was that it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was the one.
Eric Larson, wonderful.
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah.
He writes the best narrative nonfiction, I think, that's out there. And
he's very determined that it's not fiction.
Right. But I think even in all nonfiction, there's a little bit.
Yes, and you know what? I don't hold myself to those deep rules.
Okay, so Susan has a couple questions for you. Hi, Susan. Thanks for joining us today. So she would like to know, the first part of her question is, what writers have influenced you? And I think we're going to ask both of you. So Tess, I'm going to ask you that, and then Kerri, I'll bounce it to you.
Well, I grew up with a lot of English children's literature of that period, sort of, the 20s more. A. Milne, Kenneth Graham, then of course the wonderful C.S. Lewis. So I think my favorite writer when I was growing up was Rupert Graves. I'm terrible with names, by the way, and I
am terrible with names.
And I've got worse. It's an affliction of age. So basically, the love of I love writers who write about England, the England of that time when it was country, and that influenced hugely as a young girl growing up. But I really do love a lot of American writers who write about England. I love Charles Finch's mysteries, Victorian mysteries. I think they're great. I absolutely loved your book, Kerri.
Oh, thank you.
Really loved. I've just finished reading it. The Paris Bookseller. I loved it. It's right up my alley because it evolves through a lifetime. It evolves through a lifetime of this woman following her passion. And I had no idea James Joyce was such a user.
I didn't either.
I was fascinated by that and by the Paris of that time. Who else do I love that I can't put down? I can't get enough of. I know I sound like an old fogey, but I'm not a huge fan of a lot of contemporary stuff.
Okay.
I tend to run back time and time again for rereads.
Yeah.
But influences, there have been so many, and it's so terribly hard for me to remember. I don't laugh at me, but when I was 15, I read Anya Seton's Catherine. Neither of you know it.
I don't.
You've got to read it because it's brilliant.
Okay.
It was one of the original historical novels, and she wrote about the Plantagenets, and she wrote about John of Gaunt and the Wars of the Roses and the Plague, and it's one of those big fat.
Oh, I love those big fat ones.
That I bought it for my daughters too. It is just like immersing yourself in another time, and then of course it's a pure historical romance, but she wrote beautifully, and she wrote many, but that's her best book.
Is that
And
Anne
I
Seton, you
used to
said?
think to myself, why she wrote in the 50s.
Okay.
So I used to think to myself, why wasn't I writing then? When people like long, leisurely.
Right.
Yeah,
stories.
no, yeah.
I don't like too much grit. Do you know what I mean? I'm not a girl who loves grit. I'll read it.
Has so much of it.
What?
And yet Lucy has so much of it.
Oh, I mean grit in that sort of, let's get down into the.
Oh, like noir.
All right. Really dive deep.
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's what we live every day. So
yeah.
So Lucy has grit. She has spunk. She has courage.
Yes.
Yeah. But she's really above. I mean, I can't imagine how she would have dealt with real poverty in Edwardian England.
How about you, Kerri? What have been some of your influences?
Well, so one of the doorstop novels of my past, and I have to admit, I am somebody who generally shies away from the very long books because I'm a very slow reader. They take me a long time to get through. But a really formative novel for me was Ken Follett's Pillars of the Earth. I read it in high school.
I've got it right there.
Actually, the first novel that I read where I saw that, like, oh my God, so like a novel can sweep me into this amazing story, and I want to know what happens to the characters. And I'm also learning all this stuff about medieval England and about the building of this cathedral.
Yes.
And so like it took me like almost 3 decades to write my own historical fiction, but that absolutely planted a seed for me. Another really important novel for me when I was younger was it was around the same time period actually, was the Mists of Avalon by
love that.
Mary Stuart.
Marion Zimmer Bradley. And
I
get this reaction every time I mention it. This
everybody goes, Mary Stuart.
No. This like, oh my God, yes, I read that too.
Yeah.
And so
good.
Yeah, it's so good. And I'll never forget. I think it's her dedication. Not only was the book important, and it sort of taught me some of the same lessons, I think, as Pillars of the Earth, right? Like you can get swept up in a story, but you can also kind of like learn about a historical period. And it actually inspired me to read more about the Arthurian legends, all that. So it inspired me to do other kinds of reading. But I remember also, it's either in her dedication or in acknowledgements or something, it must have been her dedication. She says, to so-and-so who encouraged me to stop writing pot boilers and write the book that was really inside me. And like that she was afraid to write. And that also has really stuck with me over the years, is that, so that a writer can kind of pivot in their career, it doesn't all have to be one thing.
Right.
And that it is important to write the book that's inside you, because then it's the Mists of Avalon.
Right.
But also I think it's important for you to write the book you want to read. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Not try and work out what it is that's going to make you a bestseller, because God knows I know I'll never be one. But what I love to do is immerse myself in a world.
Right. And
Yes.
that's apparent when it comes out. Right.
Yeah.
But I don't think that she knew that the Mists of Avalon would be
No.
I think she was terrified to write that book. And like look, people are still reading it.
Yeah.
And then my other go-to is The Great Gatsby. That's a book that I've reread many times. I absolutely love it. It's, I read it for the first time as a teenager. I've reread it multiple times since then. I'm due for a rereading, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
So you do rereads. I do rereads like
very rarely.
Really?
Rarely. Very rare. Again, I'm a slow reader, so I'm constantly trying to like keep up.
Yeah. And there's a lot to keep up. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
So
I love
No,
go ahead.
Was The Great Gatsby your favorite, Fitzgerald?
Yes. Yes. I have read them all a long time ago.
Yes, of course. You must have done. Yes.
Yeah.
I love Fitzgerald.
I love Tessa that you love Kerri's new book. Kerri, I don't know if that's new. Is the painting in the background new?
No.
From the book cover?
No, that's the Paris bookseller.
Oh, you haven't seen this? Okay,
I haven't seen
this is
the big
painting. This is the painting that the cover is based on.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so Berkeley actually commissioned the painting.
I didn't know that. I don't think
And
I
then,
knew that.
but then I did buy it. I had some help from my parents as a birthday present. So, but like, I just like love getting to see it every
It's
time.
very
I'm in
lovely.
the living room. It's very large too.
It's large.
It's very big. So, but yeah, so here it is. Like, so.
No, I think it's a stunning cover. I loved it.
It's really,
I didn't know that. I don't think I knew that they commissioned it, because I think the only other person that I've heard of lately that was Ann Patchett, the Dutch House, was a commissioned painting.
yeah. So it sounds to me, so this is an artist who now lives in Southern California. His name is Terry Mura. He's, you know, on the back of the book and everything. And he's a fine art painter now primarily, but in his earlier, I think, career days, he did a lot of art for book covers.
Oh, okay.
My
Okay.
question is that some of that was also paintings that got converted to book covers. Anyway, so yeah, no, I feel really lucky. Like, you know, one of my favorite parts of the book process is the conversation with the editor about like, what's the book cover going to be like? And then of course, you know, the editor makes this pitch to the art department, and I've been very lucky. I mean, I've really, like, you know.
And then marketing comes back and goes, no.
Yes, that happened. All of those things happen. And, you know, it's been very interesting to me just to sort of watch it unfold over time. And like, and the way
the iterations.
Yeah, the iterations,
yeah.
And the way in which like my feelings about a title have changed when I see it on the cover. Like sometimes when you just hear a title and it's just like typed in your email, you're like, meh. But then you see it on the cover and you're like, oh,
that looks good.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it now.
Yeah. You know, so I don't know, like the whole, we could have a whole hour about covers. And
oh boy, covers and titles.
I'm very lucky.
Yeah, it's a good
You
one.
are,
Okay.
because I think it's a splendid one.
It's a good one.
Splendid.
Okay, so Susan has part 2 of her question, Tessa.
Okay.
Is, what writers, living or dead, would you like to meet?
Oh.
I would love to meet Rupert Graves. He wrote I, Claudius and Claudius the God, which I adored. And he was funny. Witty. I know from the way he wrote dialogue in I, Claudius and Claudius the God, I know that an evening with him would be amazing. And I read his book about the First World War when I was writing the Lady Montfort series, which goes into the war, goes into the First World War. He wrote a book called Goodbye to All That, which was incredible. And so wicked. And then he describes the fact that 3 weeks at the front and you're a basket case and there's all the officers who 22-year-old gentlemen's sons falling apart. This never-ending trench warfare. And then he wrote that at the end of the war, which he went into when he was 18 and came out of, having survived the most god-awful injury, and his parents were told he was dead. He said it took him 10 years, and he believed, he didn't refer to it as PTSD, he referred, or shell shock. He said it took 10 years for his blood to change. Mm-hmm. And he could never be on a train, and he couldn't answer the telephone. The end of his life. But he said everybody was like that. A whole generation of men that came back from were like that. But the way he wrote about it, and I love it when people write about something that's heavy and dark and apocalyptic, but they don't treat it that way. They kind of write about it. It's being cool.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Amazing. Kerri, how about you? Is there somebody?
So I would die to meet him.
I love that.
I
think I'm a little in love with him, actually.
So I'm gonna meet your Rupert Graves with Ernest Hemingway, and I think the two of them.
Really?
Because I had some things to talk about. You know, because he also was a young man. He didn't fight in the war. Obviously, he famously drove this ambulance in the Italian front, but like he had his own kind of like experience of the war and everything. And I've always wondered kind of like and you know, both of them were such important modernist writers who wrote about the war and about the social society that came out of the war and all the things. So it'd be interesting to hear the two of them talk about
that would be a great conversation.
Right? Yeah.
I thought you liked Hemingway from your book.
I do.
I think you quite fancied Hemingway because
I do.
you have him at the end liberating, marching down.
I know.
To
well, that actually happened. I mean,
I know, but you obviously really approved of it because he's marching down the street to liberate
Shakespeare Company. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I felt. Well, go ahead.
No, sorry. Go.
The one thought is this. I really liked getting to write about Hemingway from Sylvia's perspective because she had a different perspective on him that I think other
people didn't
have. Anyway, that's
right.
That's
interesting. Okay, so we have another question from Barbara, and this is for you, Tessa. She would like to know. Oops, it just. Thank you, Susan, for it's been a great conversation. So Tessa, Barbara wants to know, what is your writing routine?
Oh, I want to know.
I don't have another job. I'm too old for that now. I wriggled out of that when my girls grew up. So I'm a morning girl. My husband is a morning person. Actually, he's terrifyingly early. Oh. So I'm not good in the morning. I'm not chatty or friendly, but I do go straight to it. And I just keep it. And then I'm done. I can't write all day and stay up all night and write. I'm not that kind of person. Then I have a big lunch and a couple of glasses of wine. And then my afternoon's done. I'm like, that's it.
Do you take a nap?
Yeah, but I try not to because I'll never get off at night if I have a nap.
I
was raised with the idea that, I was raised by very, not strict, but they were very English, my parents. So having a nap really wasn't on
the agenda.
I was raised with a lot of things you don't do.
Kerri, hold up that book one more time.
Yes, let's hold it up.
Let's hold that book up one more time. A Dress of Violet. I talk about a great cover.
Do you like it? Do you know it took forever to get there?
It's beautiful.
It's really, well, it doesn't matter. I mean, it
doesn't matter. It was
fine.
The most...
Also, the gold and the purple together are just so great.
It's beautiful. Congratulations, Tessa. Another great release.
Thank you. It was lovely. Thank you so much.
Kerri, thank you again. It's great seeing you too.
Great to see you too.
Tessa, maybe we'll see you again next year, hopefully.
Hopefully. Who knows?
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.